Sup, guys? Welcome back from the Major League Baseball All-Star break. I forgot to mention that that's what we were headed into really before I went into the break. So obviously I wasn't posting any plays during the break. I don't have any plays on the All-Star game itself or the Home Run Derby or whatever. Sometimes it's fun to watch. Congratulations to the American League team, I guess, but to my boy, Jarren Duran from the Red Sox, All-Star game MVP. He's putting together a good season, made the All-Star team, and I believe he had the game-winning home run or something in the All-Star game. I didn't even watch it, but congrats to him. Going into the All-Star break, I finally started turning this around, so hopefully I can continue it coming out of the All-Star break, as I had a 3-0 day on the final Saturday, I think, and then that Sunday, the San Francisco Giants game. I don't know if you want to call that a winner or a push, because it was I gave it out as -1.5 run line for half the bet and money line for half the bet, and they should have won the game by more. I think they were winning the whole game. They were winning by 2 runs pretty late in the game behind, I think, a pretty good performance from Blake Snell, if I remember correctly, but they wound up only holding on to a 1-run lead. So they didn't cover the run line of -1.5, still won on the money line. So if you split that bet across the two, it was like a small win if you did it at the prices that I did. So it was still a small-ish win. So I don't know if you want to call that a win or a push, but whatever the case may be, or if you play the money line, it's certainly a win. So I went in either 3-0-1 or 4-0, whatever you want to say. That's the run that I'm on. Let's get back to it, man. And I did also forget to mention on that 3-0 Saturday, one of the other reasons for playing against Ronaldo Lopez and the Braves there, which wound up being one of those wins for me that day, was that Lopez, even though he's 30 years old, he was named to his first All-Star team. And when that happens, you have a guy who's been around for a while and he gets named to his first All-Star game. If he then has a start, like shortly before that, sometime between being announced that he's on the All-Star team and then right before having to potentially pitch in the All-Star game, that tends to be a distraction for that guy because he's not used to that. He just got named to the All-Star game for the first time. So that could have also been affecting Ronaldo Lopez in that game. Move on to today. We have a full slate of baseball, basically. Baseball's back in session, man. It's a Friday. We're back from the All-Star break. I think every team is playing. I have 2 plays, and they're both on public favorites. And I'm going to be, I think, playing a run line, money line split, half the bet on each in both of these games as well. I don't know how dangerous this is, but I like the situation for both of these. When you come out of the All-Star break, really, you kind of want to look at what the teams are doing going into the All-Star break. It's kind of like how you do like football buys. Oh, excuse me, man. I'm losing it. Oh, with these allergies or whatever the hell's going on here. When you have teams that have good momentum going into the All-Star break and they've won like a bunch of games in a row or whatever the case may be, the All-Star break tends to like kind of halt that momentum. So you kind of want to look to go against that team because that team was hot. Oh no, who am I going against? It might be my favorite team. I might be going against them because they were one of the hot teams going into the All-Star break. You have a team that was hot going into the All-Star break, that can like hurt their momentum. Whereas if you have a team that wasn't playing well going into the All-Star break, sometimes they use that break to refocus, get some things back together. Again, similar to like a bye in football. So you tend to want to look for those teams. Plus, that's kind of where the value is going to lie because you're not really going to tend to find as much value on a team that was hot recently, and you might find some on a team that wasn't playing particularly well in these recent games. So that's where I'm looking for both of these, man. Even though the public is going to agree with me on, I think, both of these, especially the first one, which is I'm going to lay the price with the Philadelphia Phillies in this Battle of Pennsylvania, even though they're a road favorite here, and the line is going up. It looks like it was -130. This morning it looked like it was listed at -125, but I never found it in any of the books that even the Wager Talk pregame on their odds screen had it at -125. I don't think it was at that price this morning because I certainly couldn't find it, but it looks like it's up from -130 to -138 now. 99% of the tickets. I don't know if that's totally accurate. I think we can for sure say that the Phillies are going to be the public team here. I mean, the Phillies, they're a big name team. They have one of the best records in baseball up against a Pittsburgh team that's not as good. And people kind of know who these pitchers are, and they kind of recognize Philly's pitcher's name and know that he's the better pitcher, and he is, which is factored into the line. But I still think that the line may not be factoring everything into this. And we see only 96% of the cash on Philly, even though the line has moved up on Philly. So I don't know. I mean, I think all you can really take away from that is that we know that they're public. Hopefully the cash disparity isn't too much there, but right now it looks like the best you can get on the money line is minus 140, which then kind of puts me on, I'm going to split this run line and money line. So you could split Philly on the run line, minus 1.5 at plus 125 right now for half the bet, and minus 140 money line for half the bet. And so I don't have to reiterate this on the other game because I'm going to do the same on both of these games, I think, because the money line price is at minus 140. I think on both favorites that I want to take. You could also just go to like DraftKings and play a minus one run line on this, so the team has to win by one run, and you can get a price on it that's somewhere between where the money line price is and where the minus 1.5 run line price is. But I kind of like doing the split bet where you put half on minus 1.5 run line and half on the money line because more books make that available. I think really it's just DraftKings to make the minus one run line available, so you're kind of forced to take their price. Whereas if you have like 5-6 books or whatever the case may be, like we do here, then you can shop a little bit more and just play whatever book is giving you the best number on the run line and on the money line. And of course, they don't even have to be the same book. So that's kind of the advantage of that. And you wind up getting a little bit of a better price. I think if you take whatever the price is between those two, it winds up being a little bit better than what DraftKings will give you because they're kind of the only book that's offering that specific bet. So if you shop around a little bit, you can find a better number. Hopefully that makes sense. So if you're doing it the way that I do it with the split run line and money line, then obviously if the team wins outright, you're going to win the money line play. But if they only win by one run, then you lose the run line play. So the way that I do it, it tends to be that you win enough on the money line that you overcome what you paid for the run line. So you wind up with kind of a slight win. You can kind of call it a push, like I said, with that San Francisco one. But of course, if they win by more than one run, you win both bets. And if they don't win, then obviously you just lose both bets anyway. But it's still kind of like you wind up spending almost the same amount that you would on just like a regular spread bet anyway. So that's kind of the way I like to do it. So hopefully that makes sense. Although I don't mind if you want to go to DraftKings and play the minus one run line on these games where I split the two, either if that's just simpler and easier for you to think about. I don't think that's bad either. Looking at this Philly-Pittsburgh game, when we're coming out of the All-Star break, we don't really have to look at the bullpen rest situation or the team's rest situation because they're all coming out of the break, so the bullpens basically are all available for these teams. So that doesn't really matter. So then it's like, well, which team has the better bullpen? I think probably Philly has the somewhat better bullpen out of Philly and Pittsburgh. I don't know if Pittsburgh's is really that impressive, so I don't know if we have to worry about that. This is actually kind of an earlier evening game. It's 6:40 p.m. Eastern. There are a few earlier games. There's one afternoon game between Arizona and Chicago, the Cubs. And then we have a couple of games that start a little bit earlier than 7. I don't know. These Major League Baseball games, just weird scheduling. And it's kind of weird to see an afternoon game on Friday too, but whatever. So looking at the starting pitching matchup, well, actually looking at the situation here, Philadelphia, they were not exactly hot going into the All-Star break, I wouldn't say, even though they did win 4 of 6. They had a sweep over the Dodgers, and they were coming out of a losing series against the Braves, which, I mean, the Braves, that's a heated rivalry, a big battle there. I mean, it was a 2-1 series win for the Braves, a hard-fought series, and then Philly went in and played the Dodgers and swept the Dodgers. So they played basically the two other like best teams in the NL besides them and came out of that. And I think that Philly was just kind of unfocused coming out of that, and they wound up losing a series to the Oakland A's. And they did win the middle game 11-5. They lost the first game 6-2. And then in the final game, this is one major reason why I like the Phillies here. Not only did they lose their series going into the All-Star break to one of the worst teams in baseball, the A's, who, by the way, used to be a team in Philadelphia. So I don't know if there's still kind of if there's like a perceived rivalry there, because the Oakland A's used to be the Philadelphia A's way back in the day. But I don't think people even remember that. But still, it's just kind of funny that it was Philly against Oakland there, the A's, the former Philly team against the current Philly team. But Philly wound up losing the last game of that to lose the series. They lose the rubber match 18-3 to the A's. How can you possibly give up 18 runs to this Oakland A's team, man? That's such an embarrassing loss that I think that Philly is going to be spending that time off during the All-Star break, like refocusing here. That was just a ridiculous game where Philly, I think they had Kerkering start, and I don't know if he was making his first start ever, but they only brought him in as like an opener. And then the guys they brought in after that really, really pitched badly. And they just wound up getting totally lit up, even though it was a bit of a closer game, kind of like midway through the game. But that just looks bad. Any way you look at it, man, it's going to be totally embarrassing when you get blown out like that. You give up 18 runs, totally embarrassing to one of the worst teams in baseball when you're one of the best. I think Philly's going to come out focused for that reason. Whereas on the other side, Pittsburgh, they were hot going into the All-Star break, man. They won the last 4 games, and they won 6 of their last 7. They split a series with the Mets, kind of going into that 6 out of 7, winning the last game against the Mets to start the run where they won 6 out of 7. Then they won a series against the Brewers, big divisional battle. That's a big win. They played well against the Brewers for the most part, blowing them out in one of the games. They did get blown out in the middle of the 2 games, so it was still a big win, beating the Brewers. And then they finished going into the All-Star break, sweeping the Chicago White Sox, who one of the worst teams in baseball, but still it is a sweep. And they were coming out of a big divisional series, and they still swept the White Sox. And I think I might have lost one of the games, or maybe I didn't lose it, but maybe I just didn't play. I forget if I lost or if I just didn't play it on one of those games going against Pittsburgh. I think maybe I didn't actually play it, but I think I liked the White Sox in the first game of that series because I think it was Garrett Crochet, and Pittsburgh was coming off that big Brewers series. I didn't wind up playing it, and thankfully, because I would have lost the game, but I think that was the situation in that one. But Pittsburgh, they went into the All-Star break hot, man, winning that series against the Brewers, having played the Mets before that, and then a sweep over the lowly White Sox, but still real positive momentum. And then in that case, I think the All-Star break could serve as a little bit of a momentum killer. I mean, the whole talk was that Pittsburgh, they have Paul Skeens as a rookie who was only made like 11 starts. He made the All-Star game, and he was named, I think, the starting pitcher for the NL in the All-Star game. I don't know if he did wind up starting. Maybe he did. I didn't watch the game. I think he probably did, but that was kind of the whole thing. So that's kind of a distraction, I think, around Pittsburgh as well, even though Skeens isn't pitching in this game. But I think the fact that Skeens isn't pitching in this game isn't really a good thing for them because their pitcher who's pitching today is not as good as Skeens. So the situational aspect of this, I think, lines up nicely. You have a Philly team that went into the All-Star break on an embarrassing note, and you have Pittsburgh winning on a quite a high note with a lot of wins in a row. So I think that momentum could turn around now that these teams had to stop their momentum and go into the All-Star break. Philly probably spent that time refocusing after that embarrassing loss. They should come out focused here. Pittsburgh, I mean, they should still be focused. They're playing their in-state kind of bigger brother, the team that's had the best of them in the state of Pennsylvania for a while now. So Pittsburgh should still be focused, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. And there's still those distractions that I mentioned potentially looming around, and that All-Star break could have hurt their momentum. Look at the starting pitching matchup. I think there's no question it is being factored into the line, but like I said, maybe not enough. I think there's no question Philly has the upper hand in the starting pitching matchup with Aaron Nola pitching, who is one of the staples of Philly's rotation. They got Nola, they got Wheeler, and they got Suarez, so I still think he's kind of overperforming based on his career numbers. Aaron Nola, I think maybe that's not quite the case because he's putting up numbers that have been kind of similar for multiple seasons in a row now. He's been pitching well, having another good season, 3.38 ERA, 1.03 whip. Nothing to really dislike about what he's doing. He pitched well going into the All-Star breaks. That does give me a little bit of pause. He threw over 100 pitches in 3 straight games. He beat Atlanta and the Dodgers, or at least they won the games that he started in those 2 going into the All-Star break. But he also had a 17-2 strikeout walk ratio, which even though it was against good teams, it does tell me that he has his stuff going for him. And his break hasn't been that much longer than what it normally would be. He last played last Thursday, so he's only had like an extra day or 2 off. So I don't think that's going to really hurt his momentum that much. I don't think he's going to be in a letdown spot, really, even though he's coming off facing 2 big opponents. He has just been pitching well, man. You have to go back all the way to the bad start at Boston on June 13th, where he allowed more than 3 earned runs. Other than that, he's allowed more than 3 earned runs only 2 other times, against Toronto and against the Braves in his opening start of the season. So those teams can all hit better than Pittsburgh can as well. So I'm not too concerned about that. His strikeout walk number is really good this season, 116 strikeouts and 27 walks. That's good. 96 hits allowed in 119 and 2/3 innings pitched. The strikeout number, decent, but a little bit lower than 9 per 9 innings. Still not bad. And then the number of hits he's allowed and the number of walks he's allowed, both quite low. So he's just having another good season, man. I don't know what else you can say about that. And against Pittsburgh specifically, we have a big sample size, so they're familiar with him. And he's pitched well against them, even over a lot of at-bats. Pittsburgh being familiar with him seems like it hasn't mattered. Nola's stats against Pittsburgh are quite good in his career. They're 20 for 100 off him. A lot of extra base hits just because of so many at-bats. 4 doubles, a triple, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs, 30-8 strikeout walk ratio. That's pretty good for Nola as well. That's a 200 batting average. I'm sure you can do the math on that one. And 669 OPS, not a particularly high OPS, even though he has allowed those extra base hits against him. It's still, Nola has good numbers against Pittsburgh. And then on the other side, Pittsburgh has Martin Perez pitching. He's kind of an older guy. I mean, he's up in his 30s now, and he's kind of a junk pitcher, and he just hasn't been very good really over the course of his career. He's just been kind of a back end of a rotation type of guy. I mean, nothing to take away from him. He's stuck in the majors this long, but he's just had mediocre numbers throughout his entire career. The 4.47 career ERA, 1.45 whip, a whip being close to 1.5, putting 1.5 base runners on per inning over your entire career. Not great. His strikeout number has always been low. He's always had a bad strikeout walk ratio, walking too many guys as well. Again, he's just a guy that kind of comes in and kind of fills that spot for you towards the back end of the rotation. Nothing really great about him. This season, he's been struggling as well. 5.15 ERA, 1.62 whip. So close to being in line with what his career stats are. Nothing great, really, that you're going to get out of him, unfortunately for him. But he's got a 57-25 strikeout walk ratio this year, and he's allowed 94 hits in 73 1/3 innings pitched. So too many walks, way too many hits. He's been pretty hittable. I mean, he's not a guy that comes in and throws gas and blows you away either. So he's a guy that needs to rely on contact, and hitters have been making contact with him and making hard contact, it looks like, because they've been hitting him pretty well. The strikeout number is low, as he's not a guy that really racks up those strikeouts. The walk number is not terrific either. And then his stats against Philadelphia, we have a big sample size here. We have familiarity here, and his stats are significantly worse than Nola's are against Pittsburgh. Perez has struggled against Philly. Philly does have good hitters as well. They're the better hitting team in this game too. So I think Philly has all the advantages here. Perez against them, 26 for 82 is what they are lifetime off him, with 6 doubles, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs. He's got a 15-8 strikeout walk ratio, which isn't great either. Similar to what he puts up throughout his career, really. That's a 317 batting average for Philly against him and an 841 OPS. So Philly has been pretty successful at hitting Martin Perez. So overall, as I just outlined, I think you have every advantage going for Philly in this one. I think you have the situational edge for them. I think Philly probably does have the better bullpen out of the two, but the rest edge doesn't really lie with either team here because both teams coming out of the All-Star break. And I think the starting pitching edge is also significantly in favor of Philadelphia here. So I think Philadelphia has all those different advantages. I think the only thing that you might have to worry about a little bit is Nola coming off of 2 good starts against 2 good teams, but that would be really it. So we'll split this bet. Philadelphia, half on the run line, minus 1.5 runs, plus 125, and half on the money line, minus 140. Going to the last game that I'm on real quickly. One of the big matchups on the board today, really, interleague. And it's probably it's going to be one of the bigger games, even though it is a late game for the East Coasters at 10:10 p.m. But it is one of the bigger matchups of the day, and that is my Red Sox against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Red Sox, who have been one of the season's welcome surprises, at least if you're either a Red Sox fan or you just don't like the Yankees, I guess, or you just like kind of good baseball, I guess. Then the Red Sox have been a nice surprise this season, playing a lot better than people expected after kind of a rough start too. And of course, the Dodgers, we know they're a stacked team. They're one of the better teams in baseball. And I am going to be on the favored Dodgers here. I just don't think they're favored by enough. Looking at the line, looks like it's kind of just sitting around minus 135. Dodgers are public with 76% of the tickets, which kind of surprises me actually, because I don't think that the public is going to necessarily come in on the Dodgers based on the starting pitching matchup. I don't think they're going to weigh the starting pitching matchup that heavily in favor of the Dodgers, but just the Dodgers name and the fact that they have a way better record than the Red Sox still this year, I think maybe is drawing some of the public at the tune of 76% of the tickets, but it looks like they do also have 93% of the cash, so maybe the public isn't heavy enough on the Dodgers here. It looks like you can split. You can actually get even though the money line is minus 140 like it was on the other game as well, it looks like you can get the Dodgers minus 1.5 runs at plus 160. So the run line actually is giving you a much better price on the Dodgers than what you're getting on the Phillies. So interesting how the books are pricing this, even though the money line is the same. It's the books expect this to be a significantly lower scoring game, I think, than the other one. This is a total of 8.5. The Phillies one is actually also at 8.5. So that's kind of weird because you expect if you're having to lay a more expensive price, or excuse me, you're getting a cheap. Oh wait, it's a cheaper price for them to if you're getting a cheaper price for them to cover the 1.5, I think it means the books think that it's a little bit less likely for them to cover the 1.5. So usually they do that because they think it's going to be more of a pitching duel. So that's just kind of, if that makes sense. I mean, that's, a little bit weird because you would expect that would mean that the total would be less in this game. So they expect that it's less likely that the favorite is going to come out and actually cover that run line portion of it. But it doesn't seem to be the case in the total. So that's a little bit interesting. But I'm still just going to do it. I think in that case, you're getting a pretty decent price to lay that line on the Dodgers here. And this is going to be similar to what I said with the other one, man. The Red Sox, we know they went into the All-Star break really on a tear that started with the win that they had to end the series against the Padres. They won 4 in a row. They took 6 out of 7, and then they've won 9 of their last 11 games, I think, going into the All-Star break, winning series against the Royals, winning the last 2 to go into the All-Star break there, beating the A's in a series before that, beating the Yankees in a series before that, sweeping Miami before that, and then having lost a series but won the last game against the Padres prior to that. So the Red Sox, as we know, they were hot. They beat the Yankees, didn't really suffer a distraction after that, winning the series after that against the A's and the Royals. But now I think that All-Star break, with all the stuff that's been going on with them, with the All-Star game and getting those guys named to the All-Star team, having Jaron Duran winning the All-Star MVP, might be maybe some distractions going on with the Red Sox a little bit coming into this one, even though they are going out on the road and having to play one of the best teams in baseball. So that will serve to focus you a little bit. But still, I think you do kind of have those all-star distractions coming into play. And again, you go into the all-star break hot. I think that's like a momentum killer to some extent. So as I said with the other game, I think it's similar for this game. And of course, again, I don't know if I have to reiterate, but the bullpens obviously are both coming into this game rested, as we're coming out of the All-Star break, so both teams, they should have pretty much all their relievers available. I mean, other than any relievers that might have pitched in the All-Star game. I don't know who pitched in the All-Star game, but I think usually starting pitchers just pitching relief in the All-Star game anyway, so whatever. And then the Dodgers, they went into the All-Star break on a bad note, getting swept by the Phillies, having lost the game prior to that to the Brewers, too. So they lost 4 in a row. They lost 6 of their last 7. Swept by the Phillies, although the Phillies are a pretty good team. And then they lost a series to the Detroit Tigers, who aren't really as good going into the All-Star break. So the Dodgers, they went into the All-Star break on a pretty bad note. I think they're going to maybe use this All-Star break to kind of turn it around and refocus. You got a big-name team like the Red Sox coming in. I think you're going to be focused too. So I like that aspect of it for the Dodgers here. And then we'll look at the starting pitching matchup here, where public might be coming in and maybe even coming in on the Red Sox a little bit, just because Nick Pivetta has more name recognition than Gavin Stone, even though Stone does have the better ERA out of the two this season. Pivetta actually has the better whip. So you could argue that Pivetta has actually been the better pitcher this year, but I'm going to look at their stats specifically against these opposing hitters. So I think the situation combined with what these pitchers have done against these opposing hitters, I think lends itself to a play on the Dodgers side in this one, even though I do think you could argue that Pivetta overall has been the better pitcher over Stone this season. He's got a 4.18 ERA, which isn't that great. 1.14 whip is pretty good, though. And 88 to 20 strikeout walk ratio. That's too many walks, really, for Pivetta still, even though that's a decent strikeout walk ratio. His strikeout rate is quite high. And he's only allowed 66 hits in 75 and a third inning. So he hasn't pitched that many innings this year. I think he's had some injuries during the season or whatever. Or maybe he's just not going deep enough into games. He has had some starts where he hasn't really gone deep into games, which is a little bit concerning as well, actually. In the month of June, he made 5 starts, and 3 of them he didn't go past 4 1/3. Although in his last 2 starts, he pitched really well with a 20-4 strikeout walk ratio, going 13 2/3 in those, allowing 7 hits and 4 earned runs in those. But it was against Miami and Oakland, so he dominated, but he pitched against 2 teams that are not very good, and he hasn't pitched since last Wednesday, so he's had a little bit of an extra break, but he had those really good starts against some of the weakest offenses in baseball, really. And in his last start, he went over 100 pitches, pitching 105 pitches. Last time he threw over 100 pitches was at Toronto, and that was a decent start for him. And then he came out and had 2 pretty bad starts in a row, although one was a second straight road start at Cincinnati, where it's not very easy to play, not an easy pitching park. And then he struggled against San Diego, too, who can hit a little bit, but still, he went over 100 pitches. That was the only other time he did, and he didn't pitch well coming out of that. So it might be the same here, and maybe the extra rest might throw off his momentum, his rhythm a little bit, too. I don't know. Having that extra rest coming off those 2 good starts, but again, it was starts against teams that aren't really that good. His stats, like I said, this season are pretty good, other than the fact that he hasn't gone deep into games, which is a bit concerning, but his strikeout rate is high, hasn't allowed many hits. His walk rate is a little bit too high. That's really the only thing. But then we look at his stats against the Dodgers. The Dodgers have kind of torn him up, and we actually have a big sample size, even though this is an interleague game here. Pivetta was on Philadelphia for a while back in the day, even though he's been on the Red Sox for a while now. These Dodgers hitters have seen him, though, a lot. For whatever the reason may be. They're 36 for 112 off him, a big sample size with a lot of extra base hits, 8 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs, 21 RBIs, even though he does have a 26-6 strikeout walk ratio, which is good. But other than that, the Dodgers have hit him hard and lit him up for a 321 batting average and 972 OPS. So Pivetta has not had good numbers historically against the Dodgers. And then on the other side, Gavin Stone, the younger of the 2 pitchers, he's only 25, so he may still be kind of getting into a rhythm over his career. I mean, he came up last year and only made 4 starts and 8 appearances and didn't do particularly well, but I don't know what you can really take away from what he did last year, his first season in the majors, which was a very short season, obviously, and this season now is kind of his first full season. We're kind of seeing more getting to know what we should expect out of Stone a little bit more here. 3.26 ERA is certainly not bad. He's been holding opponents' run totals down for sure, but a 1.23 whip, not horrible. A little bit higher than I like to see, but certainly not bad. He's got a 76-28 strikeout walk ratio this year. Not a horrible strikeout walk ratio, but he's not really a strikeout guy. Really, he doesn't strike out as many guys as Pivetta. So I do think Pivetta might be the better of the 2 pitchers, but in this matchup, I don't totally like it. So Stone's numbers are not bad, certainly, and he's allowed 91 hits in 96 2/3 innings pitched, so the amount of hits isn't horrible. The amount of walks may be a little bit high, but the strikeout number is a little bit low, so that's really kind of the only concern here. And he's coming off 2 bad starts going into the All-Star break, whereas Pivetta made 2 good starts, but look at those starts, man. Stone, one was against Arizona and one was on the road against Philly, and he did not go past 4 2/3 in either of them, still only allowing 4 earned runs in each of them, which is bad for the amount of innings that he pitched. He only had a 6.3 strikeout walk ratio combined, so he didn't pitch well, but those are good hitting teams, man. And before those 2 games, he had a complete game shutout, 4-hitter, 7 strikeout, no walk performance against the White Sox, even though it is bad. It is a bit bad offense, the White Sox are, but that's still a very impressive outing for Stone. So he was coming off that, so maybe he had a little bit of a letdown too. And he ran into a couple of good offenses. And yes, the Red Sox are also a good offense, so I think there are reasons to maybe temper your expectations here, what you might think the Red Sox might be able to do. Stone has pitched well against some other offenses. He had a decent start against Arizona and another start that he made against them this year. He had an okay start against the Yankees this season, pitched okay in Colorado this season, had a good start against Atlanta, good start against Toronto. So he hasn't been that bad in some of these starts against better offenses. Let me see, what else do we have here? Yeah, and so overall, I mean, the amount of runs that he's allowed, if you take those 2 starts away, those most recent starts, he allowed 4 earned runs. You have to go all the way back to May 21st when he allowed 4 in actually a decent start against Arizona, where he went 6 innings and had a 5.1 strikeout walk ratio. And other than a bad start against the Chicago Cubs early in April, and not a great start really to start the season either. He only allowed 3 earned runs in his first start against St. Louis. But he's only allowed more than 4 earned runs once in that game against the Cubs, and he allowed 4 earned runs exactly 3 times. So all of his other starts besides those, he's allowed fewer than 4 earned runs. So that would be in 13 of his 17 starts, he's allowed 3 or fewer earned runs. So that's a decent sign as well for Stone. And then to kind of close it out, his stats against the Red Sox, we don't have much of a sample size here. Only 2 Red Sox hitters have ever faced him before, and they're 1 for 6. No extra base hits, 1 strikeout, no walks. So, 167 batting, averaging 333 OPS. But really, I think what you can say is most of the Red Sox hitters have never seen Stone before. So I think that could be an advantage for Stone, as you have a guy who's kind of in the rotation now. He's kind of been able to adjust to the majors and been able to pitch pretty well and has decent stuff. And these hitters are going into this having not faced him before. That tends to be a little bit of an extra edge to the pitcher first couple of times through the lineup. So I think that might be the case with Stone, even though he's not a great strikeout guy. He might have a little bit of the edge there just because the Red Sox have not seen him before. And on the other side, as I pointed out, Pivetta has really struggled against these Dodgers hitters, and they've seen him a bunch. So those are the 2 plays today, man. So in this one as well, I think we have a starting pitching edge, and I think we have a situational edge, both in favor of the Dodgers here. The starting pitching edge more to do with the specific matchup and kind of the specific circumstances around how these pitchers are coming into this start, the kind of momentum aspect of it and whatever. And the bullpens, I think both teams have had bullpens that have been pitching decent, I think. So that's kind of a wash as well, and they're both rested. So those are the 2 plays today, man. So again, that's going to be the Philadelphia Phillies, half on the run line, -1.5 at +125, and half on the money line, -140. And the LA Dodgers also splitting half on the run line, -1.5 at +160, and the other half, -140 money line. So 2 public favorites, run line, money line splits, but I think the situation calls for it, and the pitching matchups do as well. That's going to do it for me, man. Let's continue the momentum. Let's not have the All-Star break be a momentum halter for us. Let's do it, and let's continue, and let's try to get back to even on the year, man. I mean, it's going to take a lot to get back there, but let's do it. Peace.